measuring tape and I measured one of them and I found out that it was 2.5 inches and they're all the same size. So I thought, you know what? We can make a game out of that, just like the Cheez-Its, only what we'll do is just dedicate it to perimeter. So I thought maybe if you took your pretzel sticks before you were before you started eating them, see if you could put them on the table and create and measure a, a rectangle in inches. So I'll just kind of do a simple one here. If I know every single pretzel stick is 2.5 inches, I could make a rectangle with it, and then I could add up all the. Oops, that's a Cheez-It. That's not. What am I doing here? Can't get it. Here we go. Nope. There we are. Those darn Cheez-Its. They're always getting in the way of things. All right. So if I made my rectangle with my pretzel sticks, I know that's 2.5, that's 2.5, that's 2.5 inches, that's 2.5 inches. And I have to measure all the way around. Now, measuring using whole inches is one thing. Measuring with mixed numbers like halves is another. So I wanted to give you a real quick mini lesson and put a little sidebar here. If you're adding 2.5 plus 2.5, let's see what that looks like with circles. So 2 whole circles. Let me scroll down just a touch. And then a half. And then if I'm adding the other 2.5 circles, 1, 2, and then instead of putting the other half down here, I'm going to link it to this one to make a whole. So what we end up with, 2.5 plus the 2.5 ends up being 5. So that's if you add 2.5 plus 2.5. Now what if you have 2.5 plus 2.5 plus 2.5, which would be like 3 pretzel sticks? It's the same thing we just did. And then I got the other half from the second one. And there's 2.5 plus 2.5, and then we still have another 2.5 to go. And that looks like this. So we have our 5, 6, 7.5. So if you notice these two halves come together to make a whole, and then you still have one odd man out right here. So this last half is by himself. So our answer has a half in it. The first one, when it was just 2.5 plus 2.5, we ended up with a whole number. But this one, there was an odd amount of halves, so we have a half left over. And this one you won't find when you're measuring pretzel sticks, but I just thought I'd throw this one in here for you just to see if we wanted to do 1.5 plus 3 plus 2.5. So that's 1.5. Now I'm going to put my 3 up here, and I'm going to put my 2.5. Here's 1, here's 2, and we still have that little half. And instead of putting a half here, I'm going to link this half to here. So we had an even amount of halves, and the two halves here came together to make a whole. So we have 5, 6, 7 is the answer. So 1.5 plus 3 plus 2.5 equals 7. So I'm going to get out of the screen there, the full screen or whatever it's called, because I wanted to talk about this. So we made this rectangle, 2.5 plus 2.5. We know this is 5. 2.5 plus 2.5. We know this is 5. And then we have a 2.5 and a 2.5, and we know that is 5. So 5 plus 5 plus 5 equals 15. So this has a perimeter of 15 inches. Basic rectangle that we made with our pretzel sticks. Now, what if we wanted to do a different activity, like just create a random polygon, name it, and then measure the perimeter in inches? So I already did this ahead of time, and I made this polygon here. And let's find out what the name of this polygon is. Let's figure that out by counting the sides. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then these two together make 6. So it's a 6-sided polygon, which means that this polygon is a hexagon. And if I wanted to measure it, I mean, I could take them all apart and stretch them across this ruler and on the inch side and start measuring them. Or I could take the ruler and start to manipulate it around. But I know every single one is 2.5, right? So just what we were doing up above, I'm just going to add up my two and a halves. And I also know every two is 5. So these two make a 5. These two added to that makes 10. These two added to that makes 15. And then I have another 2.5. So it's 17.5 inches around. So the perimeter is 17.5. Now that's sometimes what half looks like too. It doesn't always have the 1 over the 2. Sometimes it's a slash. Just so you guys know. I gotta find my cursor over here. There we go. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to show you, that maybe another variation. Let's say you made a random shape and you have some Cheez-Its available. Hey, why not? What's the area of that shape? Well, this isn't going to work out perfectly, but each Cheez-It we know is a square inch. So how many square inches does this hexagon take up? So there's, oh, I wonder if this is, they're overlapping. You don't want very much space in between, or any space for that matter, but that looks pretty tight right there. So there's 4. Then we got 5, 6, 7, 8 square inches. So we can't really do the length times width with this one, because I mean, I guess I could have got it, I mean, right here, drew a line, but this kind of irregular shape, you're pretty much tiling. So when it comes to stuff like this where it overlaps to find the area, um, I mean, that's obviously that space is less than a hole. But what you could do is combine that with maybe this space, which is just like a tiny little corner. So right now we're talking 12, including this little corner here. And then maybe combine, is that like a half and that's a half? So that's 13. We might be able to get one in here. That's 14. And then these two come together. So we would have to say about. So that is about 15 square inches. So, and obviously every shape that you make is different, and the um, depending on whether or not you have Cheez-Its available, you could make it into an area project. So just a little fun playing with our food once again. You didn't know math was in so many different things in life. So anyways, if you want to try it, it's an optional activity. It would be cool to hear about whether or not you did it, and what your favorite part about it was. So um, you can always put it on the old video, the flip grid, and send it to me. So thank you very much, and have a great day.